Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Harmony Foundation podcast series. And I'm pleased today to be joined with Jolene Park, functional nutritionist with Healthy Discoveries. Welcome, Jolene.
Thanks, Tina.
It's really good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
We're really interested in hearing about Healthy Discoveries. But before we do that, I'd love to talk with you a little bit more about what it means to be a functional nutritionist. You work as a functional nutritionist here in Denver, Colorado. The concept was new to me, and so I'm sure it might be new to other listeners. And so could you describe for us a little bit about what's the difference between a traditional nutritionist and a functional nutritionist?
Yeah. So from the functional side, I really look at how we can use nutrients in a functional way. So, for example, what's depleted, what's deficient, and then what's showing up because of that. And that can be around cravings. Is magnesium depleted? Is B6 depleted? And looking at certain foods. It doesn't have to be supplements, but certain foods that can help the body come back into homeostasis and take us out of cravings or different symptoms like having trouble sleeping or anxiety. And there's lots of different ways to look at that from a real functional nutrient standpoint.
So really taking advantage of the physiology of the body and looking at it from that perspective, which probably has a bigger difference or impact on the brain and how you actually work on a day-to-day basis.
Right, because the body always wants to be in homeostasis. Mm-hmm. And so when something gets depleted or in an excess level, we don't feel good. Mm-hmm. And that gives us a real message. And then it's going back and looking at that of what do we need to kind of boost things back up to come to balance or bring things back more to the middle ground. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of detective work in that. Mm-hmm. It's a fun practice, but it doesn't have to be complicated either. Mm-hmm. Just going back to the basics of how hydrated are you and how often are you eating and what exactly are you eating. It doesn't have to be complicated. But those little tweaks can make a big difference on a functional level.
It's interesting because, I feel like we could go on a completely different tangent talking about this idea of how we ignore those things that our body is telling us every single day. And if we were more mindful and thinking about what the body is telling us, we probably would be in homeostasis on a regular basis. So that's interesting. Yeah. So we want to learn a little bit more about Healthy Discoveries. It's a holistic approach to wellness. And as a person who's abstinent from alcohol, which is one of the reasons why we're here today, I want to talk with you a little bit about how you were able to marry the passion of your functional medicine work with this idea of abstinence from alcohol. So what was that journey like?
Well, the functional nutrition side of it was integral. That was the root of it. When I chose to stop drinking myself 3 years ago, going back to the physical level, for instance, with brain chemicals, knowing that my GABA, which is kind of my internal anti-anxiety brain chemical, was depleted and was using wine in that way. So what then are some functional nutrients that I can use to boost my GABA up and not feel as anxious without needing to use wine? But then just from the whole Healthy Discoveries standpoint, I work with a 10-point model. I call it my wellness wheel. Because even though as a nutritionist, I think nutrition's fascinating and it can be a great foundation, but it's not the only piece. Eating right and exercise are really good things to do, but then it's also how are we nourishing ourselves with relationships and relaxation practices and our leisure and, financially, career-wise, our purpose, our vision, our spiritual well-being. And there's nourishment and nutrients in all of those areas, not just food. And so for myself, I'm always looking at that, and that's what I am training and coaching others on too, of that bigger picture of nourishment. Mm-hmm.
And do you see the work that you're doing with individuals that you come across? Are they eager to find that kind of transition as well? Was this a new thing for you when you made this decision to say, this alcohol thing really isn't a good fit for me and where I want to be in my life, and I think other people might feel the same way? Was this a new concept for you?
It was a little because my decision to stop drinking was a very personal decision. Even, as I was working in wellness and health and nutrition, I functioned really well. My drinking didn't look problematic on the outside, but internally I knew that it was problematic for me. So it was a very personal decision. And then the more I started speaking professionally about my personal decision, the more people came and said, I identify with that kind of drinking. It doesn't look end stage or problematic on the outside. So then it became using the tools that I had been using and teaching and found really beneficial for myself have also really benefited others.
That's wonderful. And part of that is for someone who's a wellness coach, you obviously draw on life experience in working with your clients, and you also have partnerships with, I'm sure, lots of people who help you be successful in working with your clients. You have a great podcast that you do with Aidan Connolly? Aidan Donnelly?
Aidan Donnelly Rowley.
Yep. And both of you have done a great job in really kind of putting together this idea of looking at editing our drinking in our lives, and how do you do that? And so you've got some great topics that you've covered. Do you count or not count your days of sobriety, I guess, or when you're dreaming of drinking, which I was actually talking to a friend of mine about that earlier today, and she said, oh yeah, I remember when I had dreams about drinking. And so very interesting topics. The impact of parenthood on drinking, another really good one, because I think a lot of people don't think about that. And so when you think about what you've done in your professional career to create partnerships with people like Aidan, how does that marry up to the work that you're doing personally with your abstinence and the communities that you've created to be successful?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's many people. Aidan and I met on Instagram, and there's a huge kind of movement about the sober curious, looking at the dry life, rethinking drinking, and just that community in and of itself of partnering up and collaborating has been great. But then from the professional collaboration as well, I'm also a trauma-informed yoga instructor, and so collaborating with that professional side of things on the stress management piece, on the nervous system regulation side, from the emotions, the fight, flight, freeze, but then also, referring back to clinicians and practitioners for more in-depth kind of, if there needs to be inpatient work, but looking at that comprehensive approach, those collaborations are always beneficial.
Yeah, they are. And it just helps heighten your expertise and helps you have the resources, because nothing is done in a vacuum, right? We all have to work collaboratively together. So as somebody who's worked with clients for a long time, in particular around this idea of abstinence, what do you believe is a fundamental tool that's necessary for someone to be successful in this abstinence movement?
I think nervous system regulation is a biggie, and that can be on the physical side of things with the actual, what we're putting in our body, replenishing ourselves with things like B vitamins and minerals like magnesium. That can really help regulate the nervous system. But then also real practical training techniques of not staying stuck in a fight, a flee or a freeze stress response, and there's some great practical ways, whether it's using our breath, using different movements, different ways to kind of let the body unwind out of that. And it's practical, but it's on the physical level of retraining the nervous system and rebuilding new neuroplasticity in the nervous system,
which I think is very foreign to some people. I don't think people think about it from that perspective very often. So I think that would be a really nice piece to consider. And I know you're doing a TED Talk soon. So that's on November 11th?
No, November 2nd.
November 2nd.
It will be the actual TED Talk, and then it'll be out on video about a month later, December 2017. And my whole talk is the gray area of drinking, nourishing our nervous system in a new and revolutionary way. So I'll talk all about this.
Yeah, it's definitely revolutionary to me. It's very unique. So if someone wanted to access your services at Healthy Discoveries, how could they get in touch with you?
So healthydiscoveries.com is my website with all of my information. I have a Craving Brain coaching program where I work with individuals on a one-on-one basis, and that's all on my website. And my contact info, you can email me anytime. It's there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It was really nice to have a chance to talk with you.
Thank you for the opportunity.